talk about basketball game after. Would you please call the roll?
Tony Casada.
Here.
Kimberly Newen.
Here.
John Danio.
Here.
Dennis Smith.
Here.
Mike Meyer.
Here. Join me in the invocation. And Mr. Casada, will you lead the pledge after the invocation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Lord, we just thank you that we have this opportunity tonight to work for the city, and we pray that you will guide us and that we will do well with that. And we pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the
The
flag
flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody have a chance to look over the minutes? Any corrections, additions, deletions? I thought I had one, but I'm not finding it in my markup. Wasn't big, though. All right. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the question.
Tony.
Yes.
Dennis.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes. Motion's approved. First item on the agenda, the extension and modification of community redevelopment plan in consistency with the comprehensive plan. I thought Val was going to be here since she requested it.
No, Val just helped to put together the agenda.
Okay.
But that presentation, if you're ready to hear it, will be done by Amy Zengatita. She is our CRA manager and our economic development
That
manager.
would be great.
All right.
Good evening, Amy Sangotita, Economic Development Manager and CRA Coordinator. Can you hear me? I don't know how close.
Yeah,
There
we
go.
can hear.
That's perfect. So we're going through a CRA redevelopment plan amendment and extension. Right now, the process is the CRA board met at its last meeting in March. They initiated the process, recommending us to continue moving forward. The next step in the process is for the Planning and Appeals Board to review the plan to make sure it's compliant with the comprehensive plan, which is before you today. And then it'll go back to the commission with your approval that it meets the comprehensive plan for first and second reading of the ordinance. And then simultaneously, to finalize the plan, it has to be approved by Volusia County. And so right now we have submitted it to county staff to begin the process of review. And then it will go before the county council for final adoption. So first I want to begin with what is a CRA. It's a community redevelopment area. It's an area that the city has found needed extra, has blight, need extra needs to improve infrastructure and encourage economic development. The funding for an area like this comes from both the city and the county funds. Our plan was originally adopted in 1996 and expires in 2026, which is why it's before you tonight. We are requesting a plan update and a 10-year extension. The reason why we're looking at a 10-year extension for the CRA, clearly the area needs some additional attention. We have more projects we can use it for. And the county, with this approval, would be putting $25 million over the course of 10 years right back in our quarter in our city. Projects include road improvements, park improvements, and projects that will address flooding. What we have done so far with the CRA, we have improved utilities. You've noticed the underground utilities across US 1. We've done park improvements. We have the beautiful Pictona facility built on an underutilized park. We have done CRA grants for businesses along with CRA to include improvements, facade updates, landscape projects, and these kinds of projects we would continue and grant program continue through the approval of the plan. There is an amendment in my staff report noted May 28, 2026 is when the project would expire. It's actually December 31st, 2026, after consulting with our the consultants on this project. That was the determined date. The May 28th was the date when it was officially adopted 30 years ago, but the plan actually expired at the end of the statute year. Staff has reviewed its compliance with the comp plans and found it in compliance. It is before you for review, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Who's the CRA board? Who are they?
The city commission,
The commission?
and that's common for most Volusia County cities.
Usually, they'll have, where they meet as the CRA, and then they'll reconvene as the city commission, is how it used to, yeah.
I think I've seen that.
Been there once or twice.
Yeah.
So, Chair?
Yeah.
I just want to add, so really, the main purpose of our CRA, it has three main goals: eliminate blight, enhance our tax base, and promote investment in the area. And in order to do that, we have this CRA district, and we have a plan of activities. And this CRA plan is our main guide that we use to carry out those activities. So that expires at the end of next year, and we are coming to request that it be extended 10 years. That will be the eventual request of the county council. So basically what you're doing here tonight is making sure that this plan is in harmony with our comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan. And so to do that, there are things that you can look at. You can look at the objectives, certain specific goals, and policies within our comprehensive plan, and then look at the CRA plan and say, okay, how is the CRA plan in harmony with that? So there are, I won't go over them, but if you had questions with regard to how it specifically meets specific goals within the plan, we can do that. But it is also in your staff report, and within the plan itself, it does show how the two are in harmony.
Brian, do we still get a major,
You recognize.
oh, I'm sorry. Do we still get a big boost from the, what do you call them? On the towers over there? Marina Grant, thank you. Wasn't that like a big part of the funding of the CRA?
In terms of whether or not they're still within the CRA?
No.
They are still part of the CRA.
But wasn't, when you said, Amy said taxes, isn't it a big portion comes from the Marina Grant?
They are our largest residential, single residential
And
taxpayer.
it'll still be that way?
Yes.
Right.
Thought I saw in here that we've identified about $237 or $239 million worth of projects, and we're going to achieve $25 million over the 10 years totally.
From the county, yeah, and then the money, the property taxes that are within the CRA in Holly Hill has to go back to the CRA in Holly Hill, so between the matching funds.
But that is the sole funding, though, is right? It's the taxes that,
The taxes from county and from the city.
right.
There are a few other taxing agencies, Halifax
Oh,
Hospital.
yeah, Halifax Hospital.
Maybe fine for the navigation, but there's a few other ones.
That contribute to the CRA?
Currently, with the amendment plan, the way county has it, that we are only doing the general fund from the county and the hospital.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So what percentage of the budget for the CRA goes towards, is there a percentage that goes towards residential and commercial properties? Or is there a distinction?
There's no distinction, as in,
Like,
what part, like for
for the,
rehabilitation, or-
yes, for the, maybe Brian explained it to me.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
No,
Okay, so what happens when you have money within the CRA? The money is reinvested back into the CRA, usually through grants. So you have anybody who is within that CRA district, which primarily is US 1 and LPGA, and then it does go out, expand out a couple of 100 feet on each side. Folks who are within the CRA are able to apply for various grants, improvement grants, and that money flows from the CRA into those grants. So it could be residential, it could be commercial. The majority of it does go to commercial because that's the majority of the properties that are within the CRA.
but there's no, it's just a lump sum of money that's budgeted towards it, so once the money is gone, it's first come, first served, but there's no, like, you know, it has to be 50% commercial, there's no restrictions as far as that.
Thank you.
I have a question too.
Yeah,
If you were in the 30-year and you applied for it, can you get in the next 10-year? Because I understood you couldn't get a second one in the first.
you can get multiple, so as far as the grant program, you can apply, so say you get a sign grant, in 5 years, you can apply for another sign grant. So it's within 5 years, you can apply for it again. If you would like, so 1 year, you get a sign grant, the next year, you can get a landscape grant. So as long as it's different projects, you can apply for the grant program each year as long as you're doing different things. It's up to $10,000 per property.
When can a company if you got a sign grant, your first one, when can you reapply for another sign grant?
5 years.
5, okay.
The plan doesn't really go into detail with the grants. That's kind of done through the CRA board. This is just like a general guide. It just says that we will have a grant program, and then that's kind of ironed out with the commission. Or
Is there a
CRA.
difference between what we're doing now and what just ended or is about to end?
We're just continuing it. We're going to continue doing projects we've done. We just want to continue keeping that money within Holly Hill. If the money doesn't come to us, then that 25 mil can go wherever the county wants to. So we just want to keep that money in Holly Hill while we continue to have projects that we deem valuable for not just us, but for the community. We have flooding issues to address. We have, properties that need improvements. So we still have opportunity to reinvest in the area.
And we're limited to what we can do by the comp plan. It's all part of it. Is that correct?
Well, the comp plan's part of it. Your plan itself limits what you can do, and also state law limits what you can do. This is regulated by Florida statutes.
Yeah, they have limitations of what you can do with the money, and the county has limitations of where they want their money spent, that county money wants to be spent for capital projects. So that's where we designated their money to go towards. They want to see a return on their investment.
Mike,
Sir?
the CRA money, the grant that we have now, how much of that money will we use? Will we use it all?
Yes,
Gone,
Actually,
all of
state
it?
law, state law, you have to spend it each year, pledge it to a project that's going to be expended within 2 or 3 years, or give it back.
Or give it back?
You can't save money with a CRA.
Right.
And you can't roll it over.
If it's earmarked or pledged for a particular project, you can maybe carry it over for 2 years, I think, to pay for the project. But you just can't say, hey, let's save this money, and we're gonna save it for 20 years, and then we'll spend it all.
Use it on this massive project,
And
20 years
You gotta
down.
borrow the money, and then you can't save it, you gotta borrow the money, pledge the CRA revenue with a massive project.
Okay.
Mike, one other thing, and I don't know how to address this, and I think we've tried addressing it in the past with some meetings, but inside the CRA, manufacturing, commercial, there's still a lot of companies, a lot of businesses that have no idea how to apply for a grant from the CRA. How do we get that word to them, Scott? Brian?
Amy?
Oh, they turned it right over to you.
Is that your job?
that is my job, yeah.
We heard this
That's
lady.
an excellent question. So one thing that I started since I've been here is a business association group. We've been meeting bi-monthly. I have newsletters that go out every other month that we're not meeting. It explains the grant program. I've met with businesses whenever there's code enforcement sees an issue, and it's something that they kind of know would fall within a grant opportunity. Then I reach out to the business and I tell them, your sign's down. We have a grant for that. How can we help you? I have people come into my office several times a week asking about the grant program. It's posted on a website, a couple different areas, and I'm always willing to talk and help them, and if they need help filling it out or how to go about it, it's something.
Okay, before you leave tonight, if I could give you a business card to get on that
Sorry,
mailing
sorry.
list.
Somebody's gonna get.
Hold on. One at a time.
Yeah.
One at a time.
Yes.
Go first.
Yes,
Sorry,
afterwards,
before
yes.
you- Yeah,
Yes.
and we've used CRA money,
Okay,
but I'd like to get on the mailing list, or when these meetings, are they open to the public?
any business owner is welcome
Okay.
to come.
We had a couple meetings across the street in Sika Hall a year or so ago.
That was probably about the master plan, possibly.
Right.
Probably doing like feedback.
Stakeholders meeting, yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, stakeholders meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I won't bother you again.
no, you're fine.
And Scott, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, it was truly nothing important. It was just saying you might want to send a letter to Sonic about a sign grant.
I have, yes, I have reached out to them. I've delivered paperwork to them. We have
I just
contacted
noticed it
them.
driving here for this meeting. I was
Yeah.
like,
Just
I
now?
believe they're on special magistrate in April.
So basically, this is, I understand it then, as a quick summarization, is that the CRA is a plan that, where we can take some of our property tax money, keep it into the city, we can designate where it goes, we can use it to improve the city, but under certain guidelines. And what you're asking us to do is approve this so that it will go to the commission so we can just continue what we've been doing since 1996. Is
Yeah,
that-
your role is just to make sure that this plan that we have before you is not conflicting with our comp plan. We just want
Right.
to make sure that it's before your board, make sure you're in agreement with it. And I just kind of gave you a summary of what a CRA is, just so you have some context.
But continually through the plan, it says that it has to agree with the comp plan, right?
Yeah.
It
yeah.
does,
And it's been
yeah.
reviewed by city staff, it's been reviewed by consultants,
Right.
but we just wanted your approval.
I can take it all in, so,
Pardon me?
with the county anyway. County's got the final say on it, right?
In the end, yeah, that's what it looks like.
But they want, of course, your recommendation as well, that we're not violating our own policies to get this passed.
I've used it, Tony's used it. It's
Yeah,
great. It's a
I've
great
used
tool.
it. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great tool.
And we'd love to have it another 10 years for our community.
And we've been in business 53 years here until about 4 or 5 years. We never knew it was available.
We're trying to fix that.
Okay. I'll help you in any way I can.
I appreciate it.
Anyone have any more questions for the young lady?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Is there anyone out here that'd like to speak to this? No. All right. Hearing none. I would entertain a motion to approve recommendation to the city council to adopt the new CRA.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second.
Second?
Any more discussion? Call the question, please.
John Daniel,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Kimberly Nguyen,
Yes.
Dennis Smith.
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes.
Chairman, just so we're clear that the motion implicitly, it's implying that, or inferring that your motion is that the comprehensive, the CRA plan as amended is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan.
That's
part of
correct.
your recommendation for approval.
That's our recommendation, yes. I did not state that clearly. I'm sorry.
No, I was just adding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to number 2. (1540) Center Avenue side yard setback variance. Looks like you're up, Mr. Walker.
Yes, Chair, Board. This is a request for a side yard setback variance, and it's from the requirements of Section 114-765 of our Land Development Regulations. And what that is it's a schedule or chart, if you will, of our dimensional requirements.
Yep.
This in particular has to do with a variance from the required side yard setback of 8 feet to 5.5 feet. And it's for a parcel that's in the R2 Single Family Zoning District on Center Avenue, and it is specifically known as 1540 Center Avenue. So just to give a little background on it, toward the end of 2024, the applicant tore down an old pergola that was in their backyard. And prior to rebuilding it, they put in a new shed, but they didn't obtain a permit to get the new shed. Once the shed was installed, the applicant then began to rebuild their pergola, also without a permit. And the location of the pergola doesn't meet the required side setback of 8 feet. So prior to completing the pergola, a stop work order was issued by the city's building official. And the homeowner was told that the shed and the pergola needed permits and to stop all work on the pergola since it was not in a location that met code requirements. Now, although the new pergola was being built in the same location as the previous one, the previous pergola did not meet the side setback of 8 feet either. And so therefore, it was called what we call legal nonconforming. Now, Section 114-344 subsection B of the Land Development Regulations state that if the non-conforming structure is damaged in excess of 65% of its then assessed value, any reconstruction shall comply with this chapter, meaning that it would be required to meet the current required setbacks, including the side setback of 8 feet. So the applicant completely removed the previous pergola because it was damaged beyond repair, and this meant that the new pergola was required to meet the current codes. The homeowner did then obtain an after-the-fact permit for the shed, but continued work on the pergola without a permit and in violation of the city's stop work order. A permit for the pergola is not being issued and would not have been issued because it encroaches into the north side setback, thus not meeting code requirements. The applicant has completed the pergola, as stated, and is now applying for a variance to the side yard setback. So basically, the request is for a variance from Section 114-765 of the Land Development Regulations of Holly Hill for a side yard setback from 8 feet to 5.5 feet in an effort to, in a sense, legitimize the non-conforming location of the pergola. Now, in order to grant that request, the commission will have to find that the request meets the requirements of Section 82-317. And that gives 6 criteria. I won't go into all 6 unless you have some that you specifically have questions on. I will highlight a couple of them. For example, criteria 2 says that any special conditions and circumstances that might require a variance did not result from the actions of the applicant. Well, the applicant started construction of the pergola, which now encroaches into the required side setback without permits, and completed its construction despite having received a stop work order from the city's building official. So it's staff's opinion that they do not meet that requirement. Criteria 3 says that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that's denied by this subpart to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. So, in looking at this statement basically means that if a zoning variance is granted to an applicant, it can't give them an unfair advantage. It can't give them a special permission that other properties in the same zoning district don't have access to. So the variance needs to address only a unique hardship that is specific to that applicant's property and not create a privilege when compared to other properties. It's staff's opinion that granting the variance would allow the applicant's pergola to encroach into the side setback. Other properties can't do this. So the question then becomes, well, what is the undue hardship upon which the variance should be granted. Staff was not able to find that there was a hardship. There were other options available to the applicant with regard to building a pergola that would have met the side yard setback. So it's staff's opinion that they do not meet this requirement. In criteria number 5, it says that granting the variance, or that the variance granted is the minimum variance necessary to make possible a reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Well, the pergola could have been moved possibly closer to the shed or made slightly smaller in order to meet the side setback. It also could have maybe been turned 90 degrees and in that sense met the side setback requirement. These are remedies that would have been easier to implement at the time that the stop work order was implemented, but are now more difficult since it's complete. So it's staff's opinion that they don't meet that requirement. Criteria number 6, that the grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this subpart and the city's comprehensive plan, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Well, granting the variance would not be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan, in that the comprehensive plan requires that code requirements be followed unless there is a variance or a waiver prior to taking action. So it's staff's opinion that they do not meet that requirement. So in a nutshell, staff does not feel that they have met any of the criteria as stated in the section 82-317. And that is why staff recommends denial of the request for a side yard setback variance from the requirements of section 114-765 of the Land Development Regulations titled Schedule of Dimensional Requirements, a variance from the required side yard setback of 8 feet to 5.5 feet for a parcel in the R2 single-family zoning district located on the west side of Center Avenue, approximately 380 feet south of Floman Street, and more particularly known as 1540 Center Avenue. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. Scott, would you explain to us the difference between our two functions, the two functions that we have, the quasi-judicial function and the other one that you speak of regularly?
You know, there's 2 steps that we have to regulating
Will you pull your
growth.
microphone down a little bit? Thank
Is
you.
that better? There's 2 steps where this body and the commission have in regulating development and growth. One is adopting the rules and regulations that we want people to comply with. When you do that, you're acting legislatively. It's a policy decision. There's broad discretion that both you and the commission have in making those recommendations and determinations. The other step is when you apply the rules and regulations that you adopted during your legislative action to a property owner. And those are not legislative actions. Those are what we refer to as quasi-judicial. And when quasi-judicial actions, you don't have discretion anymore. The applicant, regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's a variance, special exception, rezoning, the applicant has the burden of proving that they meet the criteria. And then, once the applicant satisfies that burden, and if the commission wants to ultimately do something different, then the commission has to have substantial competent evidence to support whatever decision's made. So, and you could have situations where there's substantial competent evidence to support more than one decision. But ultimately, the applicant has the initial burden of proof, and they have to establish by substantial competent evidence that they comply with the requirements for which they're seeking their development order, which a variance is. Also, because this is quasi-judicial, any ex parte communications that have occurred with not just the applicant, but anybody other than staff. If you've talked to anybody about it, it ought to be disclosed during this meeting, the substance of that communication. You don't have to disclose discussions you've had with city staff. That would not be considered ex parte communication. But the applicant, neighbor, anybody else other than city staff, you need to disclose the substance of those conversations, if anybody's had any. But is that sufficient? Do we go into more detail, or
I think that.
any questions?
Everybody clear? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simpson, I appreciate it. All right, is the applicant here? You want to speak about this?
Hello, I'm Dan Salito. I'm the owner of 1547.
Excuse me,
All right,
sir? I'm sorry, could you slow it? I didn't get your last name.
Solito, Sollitto.
Thank you.
So, when I purchased this property, and I have a copy of the survey, which was submitted at the time when I found out that this pergola was there. When I first originally looked at the property, the pergola was there. It's on a survey. That was one of the selling points of this property. Okay, when I acquired this property, it was a little rickety. Okay, and I looked at it and I'm like, wow, this doesn't really look safe. The hurricane came and politely tore it down. I did not remove the pergola. The weather removed the pergola. So at the time, I was having a swimming pool put in, and it was delayed due to the fact that there was a hurricane because the ground was too wet to dig. So the pergola was already down. It stayed there for a month or so till the ground dried up enough to get out there to it. They came in, they put the pool. I did have the utility building put in because when I bought the utility building, I was told from the seller that no, you do not need a permit. They rolled it in, I put it in place, then they started construction of the pool. Okay, at the time of the construction of the pool, I had torn down the old pergola and removed all the damaged lumber, and I started buying new lumber. And I spoke to Mr. Walker and asked him about this, and he said he was on the same brainwave that I was. He assumed that because it was on the property when I purchased it, that I could rebuild it. I thought because I owned the property, it was on the property when I bought it. It has been collecting tax revenue since 2009 because it's on the county website. So somebody's been getting taxes off of this structure that's on there, and it shows on the tax website that it is a unfinished structure, which is here. And it shows from 2010, the 8x13 unfinished structure. You can see it in that picture right there. So it shows that the pergola was there, and it's been there since 2010, give or take. So I was under the assumption that since it was there, that I could rebuild it. So it was made out of 2x4s and 1x4s, and now it's made out of 2x6s and 2x12s. At the time that Mr. Walker states that there was a stop order on it, I didn't do anything else to it. The posts were put in the ground, 3 feet deep, with 80 pounds of concrete on each leg, 2x12s with 4-inch screws around the outside header, 2x4s on 16-inch centers with hurricane straps put on, and then that's when the notice of stop construction started. I haven't done anything to that unit since then. It's just literally sitting there, waiting to hear back from the city as to whether or not I can have this structure. I don't feel that the homeowner that I did anything wrong. I simply replaced a structure that was on the property that the hurricane tore down. I have several pictures that I've taken of all the stuff that I've done to this piece of property. I've spent probably close to $75,000 upgrading 1540 Center Avenue by putting the pool in, by resodding the yard, by having the air conditioner and all that stuff replaced. I spent a lot of money on this property. That was one of the main selling points when I purchased this, was the pergola in the backyard and the garage. My father passed away. I needed somewhere to put some of his belongings. I bought a utility building. I was told at the time I purchased, you don't need a permit for it. Just open the gate, we'll put it where you want it. So I did that. Well, then once the inspector came out and told me that you can't have that, that's when I contacted Mr. Walker and found out that I needed to get a permit for that unit, which I have acquired. All I'm waiting for now is a return call from the gentleman who's supposed to anchor it to the ground to make it legal by the state. I moved the building. It's everywhere within the guidelines that was given to me. Had I known that there was a structure that wasn't supposed to be there, that would have been a major selling point for me not purchasing this property, because that's what I wanted. It was there. I assumed that because it was there, it was legal. At no time ever from the time that I purchased the property, had it surveyed, did anybody ever say anything about an unpermitted structure on this property. So I didn't know. So I took it and figured, well, if it's here, it's been here since 2010, that it's legit. So I just rebuilt it. I haven't done anything to it since the stop order was sent to me. I have spent, hundreds of dollars to comply this unit. I did the variance report. I filed for the permit for the building. I paid $50 to have all the certified letters sent out to all of my neighbors, which I see they're here. I don't know, from what I've done, I think I've done everything legit. The neighbor that it's closest to signed a statement when I did the variance report stating that she didn't have an issue with that pergola being there, that it looked way better than the one that's there. It doesn't have a roof on it. It's simply just an open air structure. There's no lift possible. I've got bags of hurricane type brackets to put on it to finish it so that it does not move and will not move. So I don't know what else to do. Had I known that there was an issue with it, I would have addressed it. I'd done what I thought was legitimately my right as the homeowner to replace the structure that was torn down on my property. So I mean, I have plenty of pictures if you'd like to see what it looks like. This is what the backyard looks like now. This is what the top of the pergola looks like. I mean, I haven't done anything that doesn't warrant.
All right, you're now entering those into the record. We'll be keeping them.
That's fine, I'll bring more if you need them. I have plenty of pictures.
Thank you. No, we don't need more.
Like I said, had I known that there would have been an issue with the permitting, I would have filed a permit for it. But being how it has been there since 2010,
Send that other one back down this way.
and at this point, I mean, I'm willing to do whatever I would, the city requires me to do to make this a legitimate permit. If I need a permit, then I'll file for a permit. If there's certain guidelines that you would like it built by, if somebody would kindly produce that, I would be more than glad to adhere to that plan. But at no time ever, up until now, has anybody ever said, this is the guidelines that you have to go to build this. Or no, you can't have this there. All I was told was, no, you can't have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, the building official, Ricky Lee, is here. The stop work order was issued by him. He spoke with Mr. Salido, as well as I did, and let him know the guidelines. So I don't agree with
I saw this.
everything that was stated,
Yeah,
but
I figured we'd
the
get-
building official can shed more light on it if you'd like.
I will have him speak shortly. Anyone here that'd like to speak for this pergola? No. Anyone who wants to speak against it? Mr. Lee, come tell us what you know.
Ricky Lee, Chief Building Official, City of Holly Hill. I was doing an inspection for the pond, the pool that you see. And when I came onto it, we found the work being done on the gazebo.
Try to get that closer to you or speak
Yeah,
louder,
the
one of the
gazebo or
two.
the pergola. It was not finished when I wrote the stop work order. Do you by chance have the pictures from the code enforcement in this?
For the, no, not for the code enforcement case.
At the time that I found it, the posts were in the ground, the beams were on it, part of the trusses or rafters were up, but the one-bys were not put on it, so it was not complete. After doing the stop work order, Mr. Salido came in, we spoke, we told him what he needed. He mentioned about the variance, that's how he found out about doing the variance. We gave him the paperwork for the variance, that type work. I had another inspection to do with the pool. The pool company called for the inspection, which is behind the setbacks, everything is code on it, and I found the gazebo complete.
Okay.
Now, I will mention, Mr. Walker didn't have it because he's got it in section 114 of the ordinance that he handles. But under the Florida Building Code, the existing building code, one of the books that I have to deal with, it also states that if a building is over 50% damaged or being replaced or brought up to code, that it must meet all current codes, building code and ordinances and land use codes. This being taken down straight to the concrete slab and brought up constitutes it having to meet all codes, even according to the Florida Building Code.
Mr. Lee, does a pergola count as a building?
Yes, it does. It's a structure. It has to meet wind, it has to meet anchoring, flood, the whole works.
I got a question.
Go.
Ricky, it meets all that, it's just not in the setbacks requirements. Is that
It
correct?
doesn't meet the setback requirements. I have not done any inspections on whether or not it will meet for wind loading. I don't know about that yet, but it's over the, if you look at the photograph, bottom photograph, the upper part of it where the ring is, that's the section that's over the setbacks. It could have either been shifted back towards this way, or it could have been turned. At the time that we found it, it would have been a lot easier to maneuver 2 poles, cut back 2 beams, shift it down, and it had been done with. But it carried on afterwards.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so we're saying this pergola is too close to the property line.
Yes.
Okay. The original, did he have a survey?
The original
Yeah, he
pergola is
had
in the
a
same exact place that this pergola is.
So it was on the, it was,
He has a long survey that shows that, yeah. Shows, let me get it up here again. He has something on the long survey that's not labeled, shows a dimension to the fence rather than to the property line. And on the side that we're talking about.
so it was too close to the property line, Mike?
It looks.
The original,
It looks.
on the
we
original
don't have-
survey.
We don't have an actual number to prove it, but it looks like
Yeah.
so. So I don't know why Long didn't tie that to the property line when they tied the fence, but they did.
Mike,
Sir,
isn't that what they call the legal non-conforming? Is that what you call that?
existing.
The original, the existing one?
It could be.
Yeah.
If it was built in compliance, you can have a situation where a structure like this is built in compliance, then the city changes its code and says we now have a bigger setback. And this structure was once in compliance, and now is non-compliant. But if we go in and tell somebody, you have to tear out what we initially permitted, you got to tear it out now because we changed our codes, then we may have to compensate them for taking their property, and that's why we grandfather. That's why it's called a grandfather non-conforming structure.
Right.
And there are rules about grandfather non-conforming structures. You're allowed to keep them, you're allowed to repair them, you're allowed to maintain them, but ultimately, the goal is that these nonconformities will come into compliance. So if it gets damaged to a certain extent, when you go to rebuild, you have to rebuild in conformance with the current codes, not the codes that were in place when the original was built. Just because something was built, was there, doesn't mean it's legal today. It may have been legal back then, when it was permitted, but it's not legal today. So you can't assume you can automatically put something back in the exact same location it used to be. And that's why you get permits. Permits would tell you, no, you can't redo this the way it was before. You also can't move or shift a you can't expand a non-conforming structure. You can't move a non-conforming structure. So there's rules on what you can do with a non-conforming structure, which is basically, you can keep what you have there as long as you maintain it. But once it's damaged to a certain, once you go beyond repair and you're really replacing it,
Right.
you need to replace it in conformance with the rules in place at that time. And so what we're here addressing is a variance because, with a variance, we're saying to apply the rules to this property owner creates some type of a hardship for the 6 criteria that Brian went over. We look at that and say, well, under these circumstances, we think you need some relief from our standard rules, and we therefore grant a variance to allow some encroachment into the setback, or whatever the case may be. But that's kind of how that process works, and we're at the step of the process where the applicant's saying, I would like some relief from the rules. In essence, basically saying, I put it back exactly where it was, so there's no more hardship, if you will, or impact to adjoining property owners that were there before. I just put it back exactly where it was. I haven't enlarged it. I haven't shifted it closer to the property line, increased the setback any, encroachment into the setback requirements any. In essence is what his claim is, and staff is looking at it from a standpoint of, does this really meet the criteria? Had he come in and asked for this relief without building it, would this be something staff would recommend approval of? Does the property have some type, is there a uniqueness to this situation where it warrants some relief? And that's the question, and staff has said no, they wouldn't support that.
Right.
So,
Which is, our last meeting, someone wanted variance on for new construction, right? And he came in with all the reasons why it was, the setback was harsh, and he really wanted it to be here. Well, that all happened in the proper order. Once this thing was gone, then that changed everything. That changed everything.
yeah, I mean, if you were to go back to that previous meeting, the one you're referring to, had that house blown down, and he have been entitled, awarded a variance for what his relief was. I think part of the reason he got the relief he was asking for is his property, he was just squaring up the structure, and it was going to be in line with the existing structure where the back half portion was.
Right.
But had that whole structure been torn down, it would be much easier to say, wait a minute, why can't you build this in compliance
Right.
with our current rules? Is there something unique about your property that precludes you from building it in compliance with our regulations or puts a big hardship on it? There's a difference. And that's why non-conform, that's how we amortize the non-conformity, in essence, by saying, when it gets torn down, now you've got to apply the current rules to it. And if there's something unique about your property, yes, come in and justify the basis of the uniqueness, the impact, and we'll see if it warrants a variance to give you some relief. But that's how it works,
Right.
the process works.
Right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Unless someone has another question for him? No? Okay. All right. I'll start with the first. I'll entertain a motion to approve recommendation, to recommend to the commission that they approve the variance. Do I have a motion to do that? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to not recommend the variance to the city
Or
commission?
recommend to not.
Recommend to not approve,
A motion to recommend denial of the variance request.
to deny the variance. Okay, recommendation to deny the variance. Do I have that?
Under the circumstance of what Ricky said about the order and everything else, I don't think we have much of a choice. So
Are you making the
I'm
motion?
making that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there more discussion? No, I think it's a tough nut to crack, that's for sure. I agree with that. That's a tough nut to crack. But, all right. Call the question, please.
John Daniel,
Am I saying no or yes now? to my
Saying yes.
motion?
You vote yes to recommend denial.
Okay.
Vote no.
Then I say-
Yes to the recommendation.
Right, yes, right.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
No.
Kimberly Nguyen,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. All right. So that will, our recommendation will go to the council. When does he have to reappear, Bryce?
He will go to the city commission on the 22nd
Of April.
of April.
Mr. Solito, I had Mr. Simpson describe what our chore was up here. And that's, we have an ordinance, we're limited to what we can do. If we are looking at this and the ordinance says one thing and something else has happened, our hands are pretty much tied. Am I sympathetic with you? Absolutely. So is Mr. Casada, everybody up here is.
But at no time did anybody ever tell me that.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but That's not, we're done with that part. I'm just telling you that you have sympathy up here, but we did what we had to do, and that's what the commission will do also. Okay? All right, thank you. All right, let's move on.
Will I be able to go in front of the commission with this code?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, you got another shot.
What's that?
Of notification, either via email or paper form?
Yeah, it will be the 22nd at 6 o'clock in this room. If you'd like me to send you, I can send you an email, if you'd like. Sure. And, Chairman, one of the things that, in this, that I have to do, Mr. Solito, is try to find, in these cases, a hardship that meets the legal requirement of what would be a hardship. And I wasn't able to do that. To the simple fact that it used to be there and you put it back in the same spot, I understand that completely. The code tells me that you can't do that. So from my position, in order to go against that, I have to come up with a hardship, something unique to the land, something that just makes it almost impossible for you to be able to follow the rule. And so I'm not able to come up with that. Doesn't mean the commission will agree with me. So when you come on the 22nd, it will be very much like this. You can make your argument, and I make my position based on the code. Okay.
My property abuts his, so I received the letter, and I talked to Mr. Walker. Why were we asked if we were okay with it? It sounds to me like the decision was already made to deny it.
No, ma'am,
Yeah.
it's not, we denied recommending approval, right? We denied recommending the variance. This goes to the commission, and that's the final call. But this case is over now. So you could have made that remark during the hearing that we were having, but our hearing about that is now done. So I'm sorry, but it certainly was, nothing, ma'am. Ma'am, nothing was predetermined, and discussion about that is now over. Okay, we're moving on. Number 3, please.
Chair and Board, this item concerns a request for annexation. It's a request to annex 1.028 acres on the west side of Nova Road. It's approximately 450 feet south of Gulf Avenue, and it's more specifically known as 1152 South Nova Road. This parcel is developed with a 1,796 square foot structure that's currently used, I believe, for trailer sales, and the applicant has submitted a petition for annexation and proposes to sell RVs at the site. Now, Florida statute section 171.044 presents the requirements for voluntary annexation. There are different types of annexation. In this particular case, the applicant has come to the city and voluntarily asked to be annexed. And the property is contiguous to the current city limits on 2 sides, and the annexation will result in a city limit that is reasonably compact. So from that perspective, it does meet the statutory requirements. The request is also a companion to a request for a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezone. The proposed map amendment will be to general commercial, which is consistent with the abutting land uses, as well as that of the other land uses along Nova Road. And the proposed zoning is CC1, Commercial Corridor. This is also consistent with the zoning of the abutting properties. As far as financial impacts are concerned, there will really be no financial impacts are expected other than a minor increase in the taxable value. Based on this, staff recommends that the City Commission annex 1.028 acres on the west side of Nova Road, approximately 475 feet south of Gulf Avenue, and more specifically known as 1152 South Nova Road. Thank you.
Want to talk about it? No? Anyone have questions for Mr. Walker?
I'd like to make a statement. I think any city in Volusia County would love to have that young man in their city. If you've looked at that property and what he's done. Anybody looked at it?
That's because he eats good pizza, that's why.
I looked at it when I was going to get a new trailer from Pat, and he wasn't there anymore.
So I think any, like I say, any city, Daytona, Volusia County, South Daytona, Daytona Beach, Ormond would love to have, that's what we need is more young guys like that, because us old guys are done.
So, any questions for Mr. Walker then? None? All right. Anyone else, would anyone like to speak to this? Why?
Don't sell, what is it? Don't go past the sale.
I actually see no problem with letting do it.
Tell us your name and where you are.
I am Dino Anderson. I'm behind the property, directly behind it, on Maryland. And he put a 10-story building there. It wouldn't even bother me because he's bringing work in there and whatever, you know. So I'd rather see that sort of what he's doing, especially for me myself.
Jeepers, you're not going to be able to get out of here. Your head won't make it through the door.
Yeah,
Are you in the city? Are you in the city of Holly Hill?
he's in the county.
Property behind his,
Is it in the city of Holly Hill?
no, it's in Ormond Beach.
So,
Brian will be
But-
speaking with you about
you-
getting it,
but-
annexing out.
right, so now you can annex too.
No, I don't think so. My property is, there's more to that. But yeah, I think it's really good, prop, you drive by and see everything, it's not an eyesore, you know, and it's, what it's doing is good, I think it's going to be in there and everything's done, so. Go for it.
Thank you.
I don't know him at all, I've never seen him.
3 minutes up yet. Thank you.
You ready for a motion, Mike?
I'm ready for a
motion.
motion to approve recommending annexation, accepting this annexation to the city commission.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion and a second. Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Call the question, please.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Dennis Smith. Yes. Kimberly Newen,
Yes.
sorry, Jan Daniel, sorry,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. All right. Part two?
Yes. I will make this short and sweet. So now that the recommendation has been to annex 1152 South Nova Road into the city, it needs to receive our future land use designation and our zoning. So the applicant is requesting a small-scale future land use map amendment from Volusia County's future land use designation of MXZ, which is a mixed-use zone, to general commercial, which is Holly Hill, and a rezone from I-3, light industrial, Volusia County, to CC1 commercial corridor, Holly Hill. There is project information in your staff report. I won't go over all of that information unless you would like me to. With regard to zoning and land uses, the surrounding zonings and land uses to this piece of property are in a table that is titled Zoning and Land Use Table, also in your staff report. With regard to project analysis, in addition to the criteria that's established in the comprehensive plan, the amendment needs to be analyzed in terms of its infrastructure impacts. So if we're considering a change to land use, an analysis comparing the maximum development potential under each land use and available capacity needs to be done. That has been done with regard to the amount of square footage, with regard to the potable water usage, with regard to sanitary sewer data, as well as stormwater and impacts to traffic and solid waste. There's a lot of information on that in your packet and calculations. I won't go over all of it unless there's something specific you'd like me to go over. So suffice it to say, with regard to the potable water, there is an increase of 4,590 gallons per day. However, our processing capacity is 2.3 million gallons a day, and we do have sufficient capacity to absorb the additional requirement. The same with the sewer. Our capacity with the sewer is 3 million gallons per day, so we are able to absorb the increase of 4,590 also on the sewer. The proposed amendment does not violate Section 163-3177, 6 Subpart A and 9 Subpart B with regard to urban sprawl, because it does not meet any of the key urban indicators for urban sprawl. So the amendment does promote basically the efficiency of the area. With regard to consistency with the comprehensive plan, I have listed also various elements and objectives and policies. We have to make sure that what they're requesting in terms of a future land use does comply with the comprehensive plan. I put various examples in there in your staff report. I won't go over all of those unless you'd like me to. So staff does find that the requested small-scale land use amendment is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The city does have available capacity to serve the increased demand on facilities and infrastructure created by the requested amendment. Additionally, the requested amendment does not encourage the proliferation of sprawl. So that addresses, for the most part, the comp plan amendment future land use portion of the request. With regard to the appropriateness of the zoning category requested of CC1, in making that determination as to the appropriateness of the rezone, the commission has to review the 8 points of consideration that are outlined in section 82-372. That is in Exhibit C of your staff report. So staff has reviewed those 8 points and does not find within them any reason to withhold a recommendation of approval for the requested rezone and land use amendment. Also, I'll add that with regard to the specific rezone request, the predominant zoning category that's applied along both sides of Nova Road, between particularly Alabama and Gulf Avenue, it's CC1, commercial corridor. And the existing business and properties that abut the parcel under review are also zoned CC1. So according to policy 1.1.3 of the flat future land use element, the CC1 zoning designation is consistent with the general commercial land use, because they have to marry. The land use and zoning have to be compatible based on the comprehensive plan. So based on this, staff will recommend adoption of the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from MXZ mixed-use zone Volusia County to general commercial Holly Hill for approximately 1.02 acres located on the west side of Nova Road, approximately 475 feet south of Gulf Avenue, and more specifically known as 1152 South Nova Road. That's one ordinance. And then a second ordinance. Staff recommends adoption of the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from I-3 Light Industrial Volusia County to CC1 Commercial Corridor Holly Hill for approximately 1.02 acres located on the west side of Nova Road, approximately 475 feet south of Gulf Avenue, and more specifically known as 1152 South Nova Road. Okay. That concludes that presentation.
Thank you, Brian. Scott, can we do this in one vote, or will we need to do?
You just read my mind.
Typically, when we do comp plan and zoning, we do one presentation, but we vote on them separately. Because, as I mentioned earlier, one of your decisions, sometimes you sit as quasi-judicial, sometimes you sit legislatively, and this is a situation where you're sitting as both. The comp plan amendment is legislative action. Anything related to the comp plan is deemed by law to be legislative. But your rezoning is quasi-judicial, so technically it's held to a different standard of review as we discussed. So I would recommend having a vote first on the comprehensive plan amendment and secondly on the rezoning.
I've lost my page again, sorry. That's why I've not been very good on the recommendations, because I can't seem to get to the recommendation page, and I don't want to hold things up. All right. Well, let's first we'll call the, we'll talk about the small scale future land use, right? Take a vote on it, and then we'll take a vote on the zoning. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the small scale future land use designation on this 1.028 acres? That was something, that's one of the things that strong me, Brian, that you referred to, we started off with it being 1.028 acres, and then in your presentation it was 1.02 acres. I probably would have called it 1.03, or I would have said 1.028 to be consistent. I don't know that it's a big deal, but it was just, as a surveyor with numbers.
I was going to say, it's a surveyor and you coming out.
It bothered me.
Yep. I'll make that motion,
I
Mike.
have that motion. Do I have a second? And a second. Any discussion? Call the question, please.
John Daniel,
Yes.
Tony Casada.
Yes.
Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. Now I found it. And the second motion that I would entertain would be to adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a rezone from I-3 light industrial of Volusia County to CC1 commercial corridor Holly Hill for approximately 1.02 acres located on the west side of Nova Road, approximately 475 feet south of Gulf Avenue, more specifically known as 1152 South Nova Road. Do I have that motion?
I'll make a motion.
Dennis makes a motion,
I'll second.
then a second. Any discussion?
You made the motion, Dennis?
Yes.
And John Daniel
Second,
seconded. Okay. No discussion or no discussion? Please call the question.
Dennis Smith,
Yes.
John Daniel,
Yes.
Tony Casada,
Yes.
Kim Nguyen,
Yes.
Mike Meyer.
Yes. All righty.
Welcome to the hill, buddy.
Hey, question, Mr. Kennedy, your dad's property, is it in Holly Hill or is? Yes, sir. Okay, do me a favor. From the city of Holly Hill, give your dad your electrician's number and tell him to put the same lights on his property you've got on yours. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Okay, make sure he gets that message. Tell him it came from me.
I'll be taking care of that one soon, I'm sure.
Hey, it's finally got his ticker in a good spot. Keep him, don't aggravate him, huh?
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you, buddy.
Chair, hold on, yes. So Chair, he is going tomorrow night for first reading, okay, before the city commission. You have to have two readings, okay? I'm trying to move you along as quickly as possible. The next one, however, will probably not be until May 13th because I have two statutorily required ads that I have to put in the newspaper over a couple of weeks. I have to send a letter to Volusia County, to their county manager, their commission. I have to wait 10 days for them to respond, so now we're up against required timelines before you get to second reading. But I wanted to get this and first reading out of the way as quickly as possible. So we'll see you tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night right here.
Here, at 6. Now,
Send your dad.
yeah, if you could have a rep, okay, all right.
No
Okay.
basketball games on tomorrow night.
That's right.
They'll be all
Football
over.
practice, but I'll make some.
I mean, if you have somebody who can speak to the property and what your goals are, I don't think you're going to get a lot of discussion, but it's better to be safe than
Said your
sorry.
wife, Bobby. Yeah, no, seriously, your mom, your wife, your dad, whoever.
Anybody? Awesome.
Send your son.
Yeah, awesome. All All right, guys, thank you very much.
All right, take care.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Bye.
Is there any old business we need to discuss? You have any new business for us, Mr. Walker?
Just, courtesy reminder on your oath of office. Dennis and Tony.
I already have Dennis's. He just gave me his and I notarized it.
Okay, so we do need the, we have yours, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay, so we need Tony's oath of office.
Valerie's got yours?
That
Okay.
she's had it for a month.
Oh,
When you
okay.
first sent it. Double check with her tomorrow. Have her text or email me, please.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that was it.
Scott, you're gonna, now we have a new member that may need your explanation about,
I met with her the last meeting when she was appointed. After the meeting, I think we talked for a while. And I think Brian has spent some time also talking with her, and the rest of y'all are pretty familiar
right?
with sunshine law, public records law. And we've kind of just generally discussed the two type, this is a good example of probably the vastness of things that you will see come before you, all in one meeting.
All in one night.
In one night, that's pretty much the range of things you'll have here. I mean, you had the CRA plan, which to my knowledge has never come before this body before, so that was unique. Then you have comprehensive plan changes, which are legislative action. Then you had rezonings, variance and rezonings, which are quasi-judicial. What else could come? Special exceptions don't come here,
Special exceptions.
go straight to the commission. I think.
Straight to the commission.
So you just saw everything you're gonna see.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Knock it all out in one night.
Crash course.
Right?
except for the people that come in that are all jumping mad about
Yeah.
something that's,
Can I say something real quick?
you may.
You talked about sympathy up here, and I agree with you, but I think the problem with the whole Mr. Salito's ordeal was that when Ricky told him to stop, he didn't stop.
And stop.
And I think, it's one of those, what do you ask, forgiveness, or beg, one of those?
No, it's the Presbyterian way.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but
ask
that kind of, I think, was,
forgiveness, permission?
yeah, I think that was, that's what hung.
Well, he was told, he kept saying that he didn't know and he wasn't told. I talked to him in the very beginning, before he got started, and I said, you're going to need a permit. And he didn't think he needed one. And I said, you need a permit. And then he was on the phone, he got nasty with Leslie Montgomery, very ungentlemanly with her, and so he knew. But, given all of that, if I could have found a hardship, if I could have found something that said, based on this, even forgetting all the other things, but I don't have anything that's unique to the property.
It's real unfair that we got accused of being prejudging or something.
But from our standpoint, that interaction was nothing to us. The fact that he said he got a permit, he didn't get a permit, that none of that. The only thing that we were concerned with in that case was, these are the rules, he didn't meet the rules, so as much as I would like to have given him the darn variance, I couldn't. We can't, because that's not our job. We're not, that's not our job in that case,
Well,
for sure.
The problem with variances is if you grant them too leniently, all of a sudden the exception becomes the rule.
Right.
And we change rules and we want properties to eventually to conform to those rules. That's why we grandfather them in. But ultimately, those properties need to come in compliance with the rules. We don't have a whole bunch of new land here. We don't have vacant land here. So if we're going to make improvements, then you're going to go through these situations where existing structures just can't be rebuilt exactly the same way. And if we're going to grant variances every time somebody wants relief without having some special circumstance, then don't change the rule.
Right.
Because you're not going to accomplish anything.
Well, Scott, I know you have more time there than me, but I've 20 years here now, 20 years on this board. And I have never seen a variance request come in where they didn't meet one criteria until tonight.
Yeah.
That's the very first time in all these years. Somebody always, maybe you had to stretch it a little bit, but they met 4 of the 6
There's
anyway.
usually something unique.
Yeah, there's some mitigating
Something unique is
circumstance.
there. Or like the last month where the person wasn't gonna encroach anymore, he just wanted the building, the
Squared off.
structure squared off.
Yeah.
Right.
He wasn't asking to go any further into the setback, he just wanted to square it off, and that made sense from a construction standpoint. There's usually something that's unique. And,
Well-
and here, you know, I feel bad that he spent the money and went forward, but apparently he was told he had to need a permit.
Yeah,
If you would have asked for a permit, you would have been told you're in violation of setback.
exactly.
And everything kind of down, you know, snowballed from that. It
Right.
all originated from you didn't ask for a permit.
Right. But I will argue that the rezoning that was done in this city in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it was, some of it was just foolish. The Riviera area, those zoning requirements, not none, but 90, maybe that might be a stretch, 85% of the structures that are there do not meet the current zoning. And 85% of the structures that are there, maybe more, are block houses that have been there forever, and they're gonna be there for another forever. And so, but all of a sudden, you've got a 50-foot wide lot in there, and you've got 16 feet of setback on a 50-foot wide lot. Right? I mean, it doesn't make sense. You know, even Daytona has even gotten away, they still have them, but they're getting away from it, and they're cutting a lot of, they're using the 10% rule that I keep wanting you to have, Brian. They're using it day in and day out.
Yeah, I
10% on
asked.
each- I know, 10% on each side.
Yeah.
So you could have 20 freaking feet of zoning adjustment on one 50-foot lot.
The one that always gets me, and my dad was rebuilding Daytona on the water, a very, very narrow lot. And he did a major remodel and kept one wall. And for some reason, you keep a wall, all of a sudden you're vested with that line. Well, not if you use the percentage. I mean, if you tear down the rest of the structure, that's way more than
Absolutely.
65%. You know, you basically, and it does get abused, there's no question about it, but you do have some lots that are very small, and you can't tell, you know, either you're gonna tell the person you can't build on it, or you're gonna have to grant a variance.
Right.
Now, we wouldn't create that lot today, but we didn't create that problem.
Right.
That was created a long time ago, and we're just dealing with it,
Yeah.
so.
Well, the Lens that owned WNDV 25 years ago did exactly the same thing on the ocean. They knocked out every wall but one, and then they didn't have to go 800 feet north and south for rear setbacks, or 300 feet north and south for the front setbacks. The coastal construction control line, none of it. They put the footprint right back in the same place with that one wall, right? And then went up 45 feet or something.
I'm doing one right now,
Yeah.
I'm doing s-
Oh, yeah?
exactly the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I do the same thing, doing right now.
And we, you know, for a house, we do.
Usually
For
it's
a
pretty
brand-new
cool.
house.
Well, I do have a question. The lady that spoke up after, did she just not know she was supposed to speak up when she was supposed to speak up, or she just got confused?
Mike did offer anybody who was a for or against, he did offer it.
She didn't want to say anything until after it had already been decided?
And I don't think, that, like I said, I don't think that was fair that she picked us as like predetermined, like we already had made up our minds.
Okay, Mike. So done?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. No motion made. I got to
Go Gators.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, a lot of Duke fans in here.
Second? Not a second. Second.
I'll second.
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 All right, there's no discussion on motions to